G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Caitlin. I'm an American writer living in beautiful Sydney, Australia, and I recently received permanent residency, which was not cheap to get. For those of you who don't know, I fell in love with an Australian right before the pandemic. We were stuck in a 2-year long-distance relationship. I was able to move over to Australia in December of 2021 on basically a fiancé visa, and since then I've received permanent residency after living in Australia for about 3.5 years. It was not cheap to move over, let me tell you. This cost an absolute fortune for me to move over, in fact, and I have a whole breakdown of the cost, what the visa cost was, the actual travel, especially during the time of COVID, what it cost me to bring my pets over, what the wedding cost us. So if you want to see what this video involves and just how expensive it is to move to Australia, grab a bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's get right into this video. So I'm going to put everything into Australian dollars to make it easier. There was a good portion of this where I was kind of paying in American dollars, but just to make things easier, we're just going to put Australian dollars up on the screen. If you guys want to know, you can do the conversions on Google. It's pretty quick and easy. So let's start off with what the actual visa cost me. So the visa that I'd applied for was the Prospective Marriage Visa Subclass 300. I applied for this in August of 2020. At the time, it cost $7,715 Australian, and I'm glad we were able to submit it then and not now because the cost has gone up to over $9,000 now. But the problem with that visa is you're not done paying visa fees. Once you move to Australia and get married, you then have to apply for the 801/820 temporary/permanent partner visa. That cost me an additional $1,310. Now, before I had that prospective marriage visa approved when I was still in the States, I had to go through a health exam. That was not cheap at all. Very, very expensive, and it was a 2-part exam. So that health exam cost me $683.99. But on top of that, there are very select doctors that you can go to in the States for this type of visa. So I had to go from Philadelphia all the way up to New York City during the pandemic. So the tickets for that was $41.44. And just because the Australian government likes to make things a little bit more complicated, they made me go through a second health exam here when I was in Australia, even though I had absolutely no real medical issues involved in my first exam. There were none in the second exam. They still made me go through a second one anyway, which is not that common. I'm just very unlucky. So that health exam cost $418.66. I did also have to take an Uber back and forth. I could not find the specific Uber cost for that, but I remember going into Parramatta to get it done. It was probably about $40. So now that that's the visa paperwork and the health paperwork out of the way, what was actually needed for the visa? That involved a notice of intended marriage because, like I said, I was applying for basically the fiancé visa at the time. That notice of intended marriage cost us $110. There's also the actual cost of moving because moving in and of itself is not free just because you have the visa. So moving boxes alone cost me $102.35. Packing tape was $31.55. Bubble wrap was $74.97. I had quite a few sentimental items I wanted to make sure weren't broken in the move. I also sent everything through Send My Bag. I probably could have sent much less in hindsight, but I never moved internationally before. I wasn't sure what to expect. I definitely overbrought some things. I definitely overbrought clothes that I did not need. But using Send My Bag was $3,058.01. I probably could have gotten it down to about $2,000, but you know what? Hindsight, you never know what you're going to need when you have an international move. Sometimes it's actually a little bit better to bring a little too much and some creature comforts rather than leave things behind and you regret it. Now my plane ticket. Remember, this was during COVID. And all this was happening when you needed an exemption to get into the country. In fact, when my visa was finally granted in August of 2021, you still had to go through hotel quarantine, which was very, very expensive. Luckily, by the time I came over, they had eliminated hotel quarantine, and I was able to quarantine with Mark in the house for 3 days, which we hadn't seen each other for 2 years. Oh no, we couldn't have visitors for 3 days when I first moved over. But plane tickets were incredibly expensive, and they were limiting flights and who could get on flights and how many people were allowed per flight because of the quarantine issue. So my flight ticket was $4,041.41 for a one-way ticket from LAX to Sydney. That wasn't including domestic travel to get from the East Coast to the West Coast. Those plane tickets also cost me $574.94. We were also legally required to get married because, like I said, I'd come over on a fiancé visa. We knew we were going to get married anyway, so that wasn't a big deal. It basically just meant that we then had a government mandated timeline in order for us to get married and submit the paperwork for the next stage of the visa. The wedding officiant we used was $450. She was absolutely lovely. In my opinion, worth every penny. She was so sweet. And then filing that paperwork with New South Wales Births, Deaths, and Marriages was $185. So for that part, the very basic, very minimal, what it cost me to move over to Australia was $19,019.32. Now this is the part where a lot of people are going to get really upset at me and wonder why I spent so much dang money on my cats moving over. We knew either way, whether I moved to Australia or my partner moved to America, we were going to bring our pets over. My husband has a dog and I had 2 cats when we met. I still have my 2 cats. Hello. So we knew one way or another moving pets was going to be very, very expensive, especially because it was during COVID, which probably increased the price by a couple of grand. Now, I don't know what it currently costs. You then have to reach out to pet transport companies and get quotes and stuff like that. So I cannot give specific advice as to if it would be cheaper now or not, given inflation, but also not COVID. So I'll just break down how much it costs for me to move 2 cats from the east coast of the US all the way to Sydney. So in order to get this done, you have to have a pet transport company do it professionally. This is not something you can DIY and do on your own. You are required to actually have a transport company do this for you. So the cost for that, for remember 2 animals, was a total of $17,811.90. Yes, about 18 grand to move 2 pets over. Do I regret it? Honestly, no. They were pets, they were family, they're a responsibility. We both knew one way or another we were going to have to move pets over. I know some people are not animal people at all, and they're like, I would never, I can't imagine spending that much on a pet. For us, we knew one way or another it was going to happen, and I saved up. Luckily, we did. Luckily, in a way, we had 2 years to save up everything, so it wasn't an astronomical cost all in one go. We had plenty of time to save up for that. On top of that, you needed specific crates in order to bring them over. So the cost for 2 crates was $258.40. And we needed special travel kits added to it as well that gave them larger water bowls and actually had like metal clasps to make sure that nothing broke. Those were $41.30 each. They needed what was called a rabies titer test, and this needs to be done at least 6 months before your pet travels. For both of them combined, that was $981.05. I also needed Ubers back and forth to the vet. That was $165.75 for multiple visits. The final pet visit was $331.49. The transport also included quarantine fees over here in Australia. It included a few nights stay for them to get their final vet visits done in California before they flew over. So everything combined to move 2 cats to Australia was $19,631.19. Like I said, do I regret moving them over? Absolutely not, but I feel like now's a good time to remind you guys that if you watch these ads all the way through, that actually does help support this channel and help support me. And also there is super thanks and my Patreon link down below if you would like to help contribute to recovering from that extreme financial cost. The next big item was our wedding. And again, weddings, we all know they can cost as little as just filing the paperwork, or they can cost as much as millions of dollars. It falls everywhere in between. We kept our wedding small on purpose. We didn't want a big wedding. We knew my family wasn't going to be able to come over. We knew we had a deadline. We wanted to keep it relatively small. We weren't too worried about keeping the costs down too much. For us, it was more just making sure we had the people there that we wanted to be there. And in hindsight, there were a few people we absolutely could have cut out and would have been perfectly happy to do that. But it is what it is. So the wedding cost was relatively low compared to a lot of weddings. We stayed at a nice hotel for 2 nights in a decent room, and they were actually nice enough to upgrade us to, so we had a really nice view of Darling Harbor. So that was $1,128.20 for 2 nights. We also got married at Mrs. Macquarie's chair, and we needed to do a permit for that, so that cost us $455 to get the permit. So while I was getting ready, we were also having a couple of friends and stuff like that stop by. A couple of my girlfriends hung out with me while I was getting ready for the wedding, and I ordered a grazing platter for everybody who was there. That was $132. Also got a really nice lemon wedding cake. I absolutely love the wedding cake. For everything that I can link, I still have the tax invoices and whatnot. I will link down below what we used for the wedding. If it's linked down below, I recommend them. They were absolutely fantastic. So the cake was $380. Now, Mark had actually had his wedding ring for quite some time. I had to buy mine before the wedding. So mine was $2,160. I had a very specific ring look that I was going for, whereas Mark's was $750. Both of us love our wedding rings. I know there's a pretty big price discrepancy there. That wasn't because of cost. That was just what we liked, what we gravitated towards. So price difference, pretty hefty, but we both love our rings. I'm also not including the cost of the engagement ring in this because we didn't get engaged until last year. That's a wild story. If you guys want, I could share it another time, but yeah, we were not engaged technically by the time we got married. We had dinner with about a dozen people. That was $2,719.20. Instead of like renting a tux or something, Mark had a bespoke suit made. Anyway, his suit was $359. His shirt that came with the suit was $179. My dress, technically I had two dresses, but one of them I hadn't realized had already previously been altered. And if you don't know, when you buy dress sizes, they're not the same as standard sizes at a store. Dress sizes, you're supposed to size 2 sizes up. So not only was I working with a very small dress in the first place, I was working with a dress that had been previously altered for somebody else. So I would have just maybe been able to squeeze into it, would have been very uncomfortable and wouldn't have looked very good. So last minute emergency, I bought a $200 dress off of JJ's house. It was absolutely gorgeous. Funny enough, Mark liked the cheaper dress more. So it was $200 for the dress, $60 for the alterations. I had shoes that were $30, a small purse that I was able to carry with me for $40. The makeup artist was $130, and I bought my own lipstick so that way I could wear that the day of in the exact shade that I wanted. That was $30. And then our photographer was $480. So the wedding cost all totaled up to $9,232.40. Now, this is the part that I have not actually paid for yet. So again, if you guys are watching this video all the way until the end, thank you very much because the ad revenue will help pay for this. So when I'm able to apply for citizenship, yes, that big giant C word that so many Aussies are scared of, and it's not the word that a lot of Americans think when they think of the C word. So the paperwork for citizenship is going to cost me about $575 and the concession fee is $80. So when all of that is added up, everything is combined. The massive cost that it was for me to move to Australia, the full cost for me to move everything to Australia was $48,355.91. It is not easy. It is not cheap. It is emotionally taxing. You have some very hard decisions to make, a la moving 2 cats over or leaving them behind with my parents. Hindsight, there are some things you would change, there are some things you regret, but overall, would I change the fact that I've moved over here and become a permanent resident of Australia? Absolutely not. In fact, I'm very happy that my husband and I decided that I would move over here rather than he moved to the States. So even though it cost an absolute fortune, more than I've ever made on YouTube, it was absolutely worth the cost to move over here. I've had such an amazing time living over here so far. It was worth every single penny of that $48,355.91. That's it for this video, you guys. Yes, it was an absolutely massive cost. If you've stayed till the end and watched the ads, I really do appreciate it. Again, I feel the need to plug the fact that I have a Patreon and super thanks is also an option. But no, in all reality, guys, thank you so much for your support over the last few years. I've had so much fun with this channel. I'm still having fun with it. I will be posting videos a little bit more frequently now. I kind of miss it. Like, to be honest, it's been a while. I miss doing some videos. And if you guys have any video ideas, let me know in the comments down below. I'm also going back over to Discord if anybody has any recommendations for reaction videos. I can't always do some of the reaction videos, but I popped over there. I forgot I had the Discord for the longest time. Went over and found a couple videos that actually seemed really fun and really interesting. And I'm like, you know what? It's been a while since I've done a reaction. So I'm going to post a couple of those pretty shortly as well. If you guys have any recommendations, please hop on over there. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all for the support, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.